Let's go all out on the wild 2023 free agency with 10-year NBA veteran and Houston Rockets color commentator. It's just really a pleasure to have him on the show. He's Mr. Big Time now. He just sometimes he doesn't reply. No, I'm kidding. He's there. You can see him all the way from Houston, Texas. My guy, Ryan Hollins, joining us via Zoom. What's up, my guy, Ryan?
How you doing, brother? Good to see you.
Good to see you. You know what? You should come over to the Philippines. I'm telling you, I will take care of you. You want steak? I'll get you steak. Come on down,
hey,
man.
The Philippines is beautiful there. You tell me when, I'll be there. You let me know.
Yes, sir. Let's go to the beach. We have the beautiful beaches over here. Ryan, you heard me. It's that time of the season again. It's free agency. Here we go. Big names. Let's start with Dame time. Damian Lillard, James Harden, both asking for trades from their respective teams. Okay, let's start. Which teams will have the best chance of landing? Let's start with 7-time All-Star, Dame time. I personally thought he would stay with Portland until he retires, but finally he gave in. What do you think about Dame, man?
Well, I think in reality, he's voiced that he wants to join the Miami Heat. They're equipped. They have the assets to go ahead and make the move for Damian Lillard. And I think this is a different situation because of the loyalty that he's had to the organization. They're going to say, hey, you know what, Dame, we'll respect your wishes. We saw this when James Harden left Houston, when Chris Paul left the Pelicans, when these big stars that have big names and have done right by the organization, finally when it's time to go, hey, when Kevin Garnett left the Timberwolves, they sent him to the Celtics so that he can win. So I think we'll see a similar situation here. And I think the second place team in line is Brooklyn. And Damian has been vocal about saying he likes those two situations. And I don't think anybody can question his loyalty or whether he's done everything he can with the organizations.
You think it will be a straight-up trade? And if ever, who can Miami give some picks? They just lost some key pieces. Gabe Vincent reportedly going to L.A. Max Strus, I believe, going to Cleveland. So they're losing. But if they do land Lillard, it will be big with Adebayo, with Jimmy Buckets, Tyler Hero coming back. And then you add Damian Lillard, but who should they give for Portland? Or do you think they need a third team to execute the trade?
I think the key would be Hero, who obviously missed their run, unfortunately, due to injury. Duncan Robinson, who's on a $90 million contract. And I think you're right. They may need a third team to come in place amongst draft picks. But, Miami, the beautiful thing, they're playing with house money. Miami is in a situation where they have a lot of assets that have value that they can send over for a Damian Lillard. They're one of the teams. Every time a superstar would like a trade, they have the assets to be able to move. In fact, they were going to land James Harden, but the only thing that was in place there, they weren't willing to move on from Tyler Hero. But Damian Lillard may be a different story as far as moving Hero.
Well, I believe you're right there. At least Portland giving what he wants. Dame time just gave everything to Portland, was loyal, gave all he got. But of course, he deserves that ring, man. How about a beard? How about James Harden signing again, opting in that contract, but of course asking for a trade? Where do you think will James end up? Do you see him going back to Houston or somewhere else?
I know that the Clippers have been very vocal, their players, about saying they'd like to see him there. I think we're going to have to look up north to Brooklyn, who's also in play. When they made the KD trade and the Kyrie trade, they loaded up with draft picks, first-round picks that are valuable assets as far as moving forward. And they've got contracts, one of the most equipped. I don't think Oklahoma City would do it, but we all know that OKC has the assets to go ahead and get James Harden. So we're intrigued to see this situation where Harden was, kind of willing to step out in free agency. Then he said he didn't want to come back. So I think for James Harden right now, it's all about winning. So it just depends on what it is. Or like you said, it may be another team we're not looking at that may need a third team to step in and make some moves here.
Okay, let's move on to the reported free agency deals. Kyrie Irving returning to Dallas. As both camps reportedly agreed to a 3-year, $126 million contract. Controversy seems to follow Kyrie wherever he goes, man. And his fit with Luka, still questionable up to this point. Is it a wise move for Dallas? You've played in Dallas, man. How would you grade this signing?
I think you get it. It's it's a B signing because
Okay.
here's the reality. They went all in on trading for Kyrie
Yeah,
Irving.
yeah.
So when you trade for an asset that big, the key is you got to sign him. There's no dancing, there's no more evaluation because what happens is if things don't work out, you have a big asset that you can move forward with. You can then trade Kyrie somewhere else, but you have to get that value on the market. And unfortunately, over in Dallas, they hadn't had these big blockbuster free agency signings. So when you don't have those type of signings, you know what you have to do? You had to go ahead and make trades for them. So now that's an asset they've got to hold on to. They paid Kyrie the money, and you know what his value is. So whether it works or doesn't work with Luka, you have to pay him that money. That's kind of edged in zone once you make that trade. That's why the key is you're getting those expiring contracts, but you knew you had to make good on it with Kyrie.
How about the Dubs, man? Golden State Warriors letting go of Jordan Poole. Him going to Washington. They're hoping for another title run here with the core, milking whatever they can with Clay, with Steph. Draymond earns big money, 4-year, $100 million contract. Props to Rich Paul. First day was just making big deals for his players. The deal extends to the 2026-2027 season when Draymond turns 36 years old. Your thoughts on this, man? Golden State keeping it together.
Golden State knew that their window was very slim for them to repeat for a championship. And when you have guys like Steph and Clay, you got to go all in on championships every year that you have them in their prime where they can still run and jump and play at a high level. And from this last playoffs, even though Draymond is much older, they felt like that was a piece they couldn't move on from. And Jordan Poole, unfortunately, didn't show up in the playoffs. And even though he's a young player, they didn't trust that they could clearly win with him moving forward. So going out and making a move for an older Chris Paul said, hey, we can win with Chris Paul. We're going to take our chances with Chris Paul in a championship situation and keep Draymond intact. And we're going to play the high IQ game. And also, I think one move we're going to have to look out for is this is the first time Steph Curry has ever been able to get off of the ball. They were able to do it a little bit with Iguodala and Livingston when they had them on roster, but you add another point guard to the situation. So I think Golden State, from an IQ standpoint, a veteran standpoint, it's the smartest team in the entire NBA right now.
Okay, stay where you are, buddy. I know it's morning there in Houston, 7:43, but my guy, 10-year vet, Ryan Hollins. It's just an honor having him on the show on CNN Philippines on Sports Desk. Stay where you are, buddy. We'll get back to you. We need to pay the bills. Take a quick time out. Stay tuned to Sports Desk, only here on CNN Philippines. We'll be back with Ryan Hollins. And we're back. Thank you for joining us here on Sports Desk, only on CNN Philippines. Our guest this Monday night, 10-year NBA veteran and Houston Rockets color commentator, formerly with ESPN, and now also has a podcast. You should follow this guy, man, on IG. I just like every post he posts on IG. And also NBA Rookie Life, it's still ongoing. Who was the last person you interviewed, right?
Just sat down with Charlie Villanueva. Did a great job, man. Fun stuff there.
Yeah.
Really good stuff.
Yeah, they should go to it later on. You know, Filipinos are crazy about basketball. Let's talk about, speaking of crazy, a lot of Filipino fans are crazy Laker fans. You know that. They're purple and gold fans over here. The agenda heading to the offseason was to retain the guys that they got before, or the guys that also grew, especially with that big run towards the playoffs. Rui Hachimura, that they got from Washington. Austin Reeves, undrafted, developing. D'Angelo Russell, they got back D'Lo. Then they pulled it off, reportedly signing Hachimura to a $51 million deal, 3 years. Reeves to a 4-year, $56 million contract. And Russell, D'Lo will get $37 million in 2 years. Talk to me, Ryan. Did they overpay? Was it just right? Or what's the deal here with the Lakers retaining Rui, D'Lo, and Austin?
And adding Gabe Vincent in also.
Correct. Yeah.
And Jackson Hayes.
Jackson
I
Hayes.
think that was the biggest
Big,
signing they had because they needed a 5 who can play and develop. The Lakers get an A++ for this offseason. I didn't think everybody didn't thought that they would probably be losing Austin Reeves or one of these other guys wouldn't be able to sign back. They were able to obtain every single piece of their young assets with the run that they had. And then you add Gabe Vincent, as I said Jackson Hayes, a guy who's important because they didn't have anybody. They didn't have bodies to throw at Joker.
Yeah.
Jackson Hayes is one of the most talented young bigs in the league.
Good
Remember, I
defensive
said
player.
this, that
Yep.
nobody's seen. That kid is an absolute baller. But you got to give the Lakers an A++ for retaining their talent. It shows that they must feel like they have something special over there, and all those guys work together. Austin Reeves could have jumped out and said, hey, if you don't give me X amount of money, I'm not coming back, or I'm going to go test the market. I'm going to go see what I'm worth. But all these guys took friendly enough deals where they could fit there. So I think LA is in a good place. And if you're LeBron, you're ecstatic, you're salivating. I'm sure he sat down with all these guys, brought them to the table and said, hey, man, I want to make this work. Let's do something together and, staying intact over in Los Angeles. So my goodness, that was an A++ effort by the Los Angeles Lakers, and that puts them right in contention because these guys aren't just super young, but they're young enough to where they can come and get better in the offseason. Yeah. They still develop and establish themselves.
And they got their playoffs feet wet as well, especially with Austin Reeves. And, they were really huge in the playoffs. But, yeah, everything you said was on point, especially when Joker just ate them alive inside. They're going to need that big body in Jackson Hayes, who's a good defensive player in the block, too. Okay, how about some guys, how many years in the league? 4 years in the league. Tyrese Halliburton, LaMelo Ball, also both getting paid big time. Reports say that Halliburton will get, the Indiana Pacers will give him a 5-year deal that could amount to a whopping $206 million. I see a lot of comments on social media saying, wow, that's a lot of money for Halliburton. And then that could also climb to $260 million if he wins the MVP. Defensive Player of the Year or an NBA All-Star selection. The same deal goes to for the Charlotte Hornets and LaMelo Ball. Your thoughts on this? Like, crazy, man. If you think about your time in the NBA and now how much they're paying these young dogs.
Hey, this is a commitment to your young franchise. They're saying LaMelo and Halliburton as valuable pieces that you can build around to win a championship. You don't pay a young guy this type of money unless you feel like you can win a championship. I think it's good money. These two guys, what they do is they can facilitate. They make the players around them better. They're big guards and high IQ type of players. So that's why they're making that big money. And when you're Charlotte and you're Indiana, you're not just going to be getting these big name A++ guys out of free agency. We talked about that earlier with Dallas. So what they're going to do is they're going to step in and they're going to make moves to obtain their young talent, and they're not letting them go anywhere. And Halliburton is playing out of his mind, man. He had a special season last year, and he showed that he can be your franchise piece, and the Indiana just paid him as so.
I'm really praying for Halliburton and LaMelo Ball to, do something great because during the rookie year, I got a lot of their NBA cards, man. Let's talk about the team you're covering, man. The Houston Rockets. The team handed out huge contracts. As I mentioned, Rich Paul, one of his players, Fred VanVleet, getting the bag here, $130 million, and Dillon Brooks, whom a lot of people, the popular villain, he doesn't end up in China after all. He ending up in Houston. 4 years for Dillon Brooks, $80 million. Your thoughts on H-Town getting both Brooks and Fred VanVleet?
Man, the Houston front office did an excellent job in this free agency. If you look at the names that were out there, it was potentially James Harden and Kyrie. Those two were megastars. And right after that, Houston went and got 2 out of the 3 big names under good contracts. Fred VanVleet, obviously you possibly maybe didn't want to pay him that extra year, but to lure him away from his situation in Toronto, you had to give him the bag. So that was a huge move by Houston. And as far as Dillon Brooks is concerned, the Rockets really needed help defensively. Dillon Brooks is an all-NBA defender, okay, at the end of the day. So that's what the team needed. And Coach Ime Udoka is going to be looking to pressure the basketball more, get in your face. And he loves that style of defense. And Dillon Brooks is a guy that will come out and guard the other team's best players. So it was a gold signing. Yeah. And to give you perspective, Dillon's going to make, I think, roughly around $20 million a year. There are guys making $40+ million a year right now in the NBA. So Dillon Brooks' contract is spectacular. And I think it's got to be the most laughable, jokeable thing, uneducated, for someone to actually think he'd be playing in China. He wasn't going to be playing nowhere near China. So for the Rockets to be able to get him on a discount, man, is a spectacular deal. And I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do this season, man. And he is a heck of a player. He comes out and he competes every single night,
Yep.
and that is of value.
Yeah, but on social media, you saw this for sure too. Like comparing Dylan Brooks' contract and how about from $47 million last year, Russell Westbrook becomes an incredible bargain. Former MVP, triple-double machine, reportedly agreeing to a 2-year, $8 million deal to return with the Clips. What do you think of this? Like, of course, this guy gives everything. Speaking of giving everything, this guy just gives more than 100% on the court. Probably a future Hall of Famer. Also produced good numbers too, especially for the Clips or the end of that last season. What do you think about this deal that Westbrook's getting?
Showing that Russ is excited to stay home. He doesn't want to move. He feels like he built something special there with the Clippers. The fan base definitely has taken a liking to him, but you know, he went from the Lakers to the Clippers, which means he didn't have to move. He didn't take his kids out of school. He gets to wake up and see them every day.
Yep.
And the thing about Russ is known that he's made his money in the NBA.
Yeah.
So him only, taking, 4 a year says, I'm fine, guys. I made my money. I know my value. Mm-hmm. And right now, his pursuit is of a championship and even better, happiness. So I'm happy for Russell Westbrook at this stage in his career because that's a team that still needs him very much so. And what it also does is it opens up space, which is very selfless of Russ, where they can possibly go out and get another big name guy or sign other guys without having a conflict there.
Good point. That's class act also from Russ. You know, he can be like, hey, I need more money. You know, I'm Russell Westbrook, but he let go of his ego and he bought in. He wants to win a ring. Good point. This will be my last question for you, Ryan, before I let you go and go have your breakfast. It's a kind of slow day today with free agency. Jordan Clarkson, as I reported earlier, appears to stay with Salt Lake through a 3-year, $55 million deal. At 31, Jordan Clarkson, does Clarkson fit with Utah's young core now? Because if you talk about the Jazz, they got Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, and also newly acquired highly athletic forward John Collins.
I couldn't be happier for Jordan Clarkson, man. This is one of the good guys in the NBA. And it shows while Utah is moving pieces around, they see him as a young piece of their franchise. Quick story about Jordan Clarkson, man.
Go ahead.
I was having my camp for the kids.
Okay.
And, I like to always bring NBA players into the camp.
Yeah.
And I could not find a player to come in. I was asking guys, and guys were giving me the brush off.
What?
And I remember asking Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah.
He was hot. He was playing for the Lakers. His name was blowing up in LA.
Yeah.
If he'd come to the camp, and he said he'd do it. And I didn't really believe that he'd do it.
Yeah.
Jordan
Showed up.
drove to my hometown, came to my camp.
Wow.
And one of the things that he did is he said, "Do you know why I came to your camp today?"
Why?
I said, I don't know, man. I'm thankful that you did. It was for the kids.
Yeah.
He said, because when I was going through the draft process and nobody knew my name, he said, you were one of the only people that came up to me, asked me how I was doing, and checked in on me when nobody else would even speak to me during that process. So
Wow.
Shout out to Jordan Clarkson. He's an amazing guy and has a heart of gold. So I could not be happier for him, man. And I nothing but blessings his way, man. I'm telling you, man, that guy is a megastar right there. And it's not just what he does on the court, but off the court.
That gives you more reason to come to the Philippines, man. I got you. When JC comes here in the World Cup, he becomes our naturalized player. You should come over.
Let's set it up, man. Let's set it up. I'm in.
To follow this guy, 10-year NBA vet, big man. Go check out his podcast, Rookie Life. And Houston Rockets caller commentator, my guy, Ryan Hollins, joining us all the way from H-Town, Houston, Texas. Good morning, buddy. Thanks again. I owe you, man. Thank you for joining us today. Talk about NBA free
anytime,
agency.
brother.
Thanks, brother. That was
We'll
Ryan
talk
Hollins.
soon.
Thanks, man. Talk to you, buddy.